If you think about it, renting is such a novel new age concept. Like, imagine telling a prehistoric man, "This is my cave, okay? Just mine. The area surrounding it, yep, mine. If you want to hang out here, that's like 16 berries, utilities not included." Brother talk like evil spirit talk. I fix with hoe and skull. Mostly true YouTube data, this better not be your mom's account, shows that 76% of you understand the pain that comes with a contract ending and rents increasing. And just like me, you've been in the right move trenches, wondering why you gotta give like half of your monthly earnings to some guy just so you can have a roof over your head that's preferably less than 2 hours away from your job. Well, today on the Poopy Show, we answered this exact question as we go over the timeline of unfortunate circumstances that brought us the private rented sector. Gather round. It all started with this. The root of all suffering. Grain. Land meant nothing before we discovered that we can use it to grow our own literal food. And this was a small but significant shift from territory to land use, which is what outlined land ownership. Of course, initially, early states by definition had no private property because the king or pharaoh or czar owned all the land. That being said, the citizens of these states had usufruct rights for farming and whatnot, meaning they had the right to use another's property short of the destruction or waste of its substance. Now, the first individual private properties came once the elites used their political power to name themselves or their underlings owners of assets. To give an example, 11th century William the Conqueror claimed all of England's land for himself, but split about half of it between 170 barons who, despite holding the title lords of the land, more like assistant managers of the land. Regardless, these barons would let their land to knights and vassals who promised the king their services, and those guys would in turn sublet the land to peasants who paid for it either with money or labor. And the pyramid scheme that is feudalism lasted about 5 centuries. 16th century, with the centralization of government and the rise of the merchant class, thanks to a couple of revolts and a few diseased rats, the feudal system came to an end. And the lands once held by aristocrats were broken down into smaller plots and sold on a sort of free market. Since the people that could actually afford the land were still merchants and far more aristocrats, nothing really changed for the lower classes. Remember kids, large-scale economies promote opportunity but fail in protecting freedom. The wealthy have more liberty at the cost of other classes' liberties. That being the case, rich city men built houses in rural areas, rented the properties to the lower classes that worked on their land, and in that way, the wealthy and influential still had peasants that relied on and served the manor. And this relationship between the different classes didn't really change with the Industrial Revolution either, it simply evolved. The lord of the manor was now the head of the company, and since factory workers still needed somewhere to live, the owners of these newfound factories built cheap substandard housing to cram employees into, allowing the recently thriving working class to tend to the far more dangerous 19th century version of a farm while being forced to pay extortionately high rent. Wake up, Jonathan, you're a glorified serf! The worker housing solutions were essentially slums, and it only took a massive cholera outbreak for standards to improve. In the chapter titled The Privatization of Earth circa 1500 to 2000, the author states, "The establishment of private property systems necessarily involved coercion and violence. Claims that the defense of unequal private ownership and somehow the defense of natural liberty are false." And he reminds us that communal village agriculture did remain the most common system in state societies throughout the world until the early modern period. Private land ownership did not become the dominant system in medieval times because capitalism and commercialization weren't there to drive the property market. And I won't be talking about Soviet countries. This video would be too long if I talk about communism and the devastating consequences it had on, well, hundreds of millions of people. But in the West, specifically the UK, early 20th century, 90% of the UK population rented their homes. And post-World War I, as a way to prevent the landlords from exploiting the soldiers whose wages had increased, the government planned to build 500,000 new council homes within 3 years, and although less than half were finished due to the economy being weakened, that was enough to damage the pockets of landlords. And in the 1980s, the Right to Buy scheme allowed 5 million people who lived in council homes to buy their home for a massively reduced price. But Nearly half of those homes are now being rented privately, which sucks because they're only like 10% cheaper to the rent of a regular place. Feels like a scam. Considering 35% of the UK rents and nobody from my tax bracket can afford a place with the prices constantly going up and rent going up, the motherland is calling to me every day, not gonna lie. Every apartment I can afford in London is a former council home painted institutional grade, the skin color of a man with advanced cirrhosis, and this will start cracking the minute you sign the contract white. Then you also got the cabinets from World War One, you know, the ones with the single fly trapped in years of lacquer resembling Donald Trump's spray tan. I mean, it can't always be happening. I think it's done on purpose to remind you how you too will be trapped in an unfair rental contract. Also, God forbid these places have a decent sized window, and God help you if they do, because that shit's probably not insulated. And the ominous smoke corner your roommates with won't be helping out with the gas bills, by the way. I'm gonna see more places next week. Which means I'll have to wait for 30 minutes looking at every person that's wearing a suit like, do I talk to you, or? I swear estate agents in urban areas should be made to dress like the merchant from Resident Evil 4.
Thank you.
Not only to distinguish themselves from the crowd, but also have their appearance reflect how vile they are. I mean, why is every listing on the website technically unavailable when bro has to pull up his ninja info cards to show you the places that you can actually send an offer to? Make it make sense, you property witch! I'm just some guy. I don't know you. Oh, sorry. You property witch! Last place I saw had a 3x3 bathroom that smelled like bugs, and the estate bro told me there's been a lot of interest in this property. Like, wow, a property I hardly want has no right playing hard to get. See, no wonder 2025 is seeing the rise of polycule. Hair dye and septum piercings ain't cheap. Splitting the rent between 3 or 4 people? Sign me out. It didn't even hurt, by the way. What are you talking about? It didn't even hurt. Like, I don't care. Get away! Ah! It didn't even hurt. Only something is just becoming damn near impossible, boys. I'm sitting here in my rented bedroom drawing on my rented Photoshop while listening to some rented tunes. That's about £30 a day just to be in my bedroom. You know what else is £30? 1 bus ride, 2 pints of Guinness, 1 entry ticket to the Blackout Club, and 1 halloumi wrap from King of Falafel. Yet it is proven by female mathematics that I must stay at home because I'm not paying £30 for home not to be there. That's just not a good deal. But you know what is a good deal? Using my code POOPY to buy delicious anime goat chews. Less than 40 cents per serving and now available in Australia and the EU. I've said Dragon Fruit Punch is my favorite, but recently I've been enjoying Sakura Splash. Also, I actually forgot to mention I have a code in the last video, so I'm gonna put it up real big on screen this time. POOPY for 10% off. For yummy bosom powder, bazooka elixir, Jehubi's extract, whatever you want to call it. Using code POOPY because it helps Poopy pay the rent. And okay, hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a long ass vent, but I've been doom scoring right move and Hello Kitty Hand adventures can only numb me to a certain point. Okay, bye.